This is the mindness at the mystery. Font. Mystery. Font. Radio Science Brain. Good. Gray. Us. Good gray. We can whack, we can wake, we can wick, wick and woke. We can wake wax from wane. Amelioration aim, amelioration aim, amelioration aim, ameliorations aim, ameliorations aim, ameliorations, same, ameliorations aid. This is the mindness made, radio, science, braid, imaginade, imaginade, made of aim, imagination aid. Is today the 21st? Quite simply. All of the research and all of the teams I'm admonished to change how this is administered, but it comes in as it does. What is this place? Right. This is the mystery font. And to some degree, it's largely about assembling executive function. The day-to-day. How is your executive function? How is your executive function today? Let's say. Amelioration aim, amelioration aim, amelioration aim, particle matter, name, radio, science, came to play. Imagine something, way, be named. So same, such came, radio, science, brain, imagination aim, imagine aim made into aid, particle, matter, wave, be named, be sane, be wax from wane, radio, science, brain. I believe that may be about why I understand this place as an organ of sorts, as an instrument, with these portals and chambers that you may catch a glimpse of here. There are things that come through. There are things that show up, like here, and certainly through the doorway here, but in portals like this one here, this lovely aperture, or one that is to my immediate right, not immediate, but directly to my right, or from directly in that direction laterally, and behind, on the other side of this thing, this swoop, this wall, or frozen flow of liquid, or some kind of recording of a vantage point, like a photograph. maybe a cross section. But I think in part, this is not in the imagination of democracy, this room. It's not only the flag that wraps around the American flag with multiple apertures that open up as windows where the stars and the colonies and the indigenous peoples and the stolen and enslaved peoples and all of the actual fact happened as act happened in fact. And we're dealing with the falsehood because white boys be trippin'. And so too white women. That we have not, in America, taken it upon ourselves as our responsibility for our part of American apartheid that has been barely survived by us, far more than beneficial to anyone ever. Does being an owner of legal atrocity and running from the truth that that's where your family came from, does running from a history of poisoned wool blankets, does running from fact by driving a bulldozer of reality distortion over that, does any of that sound like honor? What kind of monsters have taken over the GOP, the worst part of humanity? The KKK, the Nazis, the extreme right wing bringing murderous, genocidal, enslaving intolerance. We, the human race, are the reality distortion fielding. And intolerance is the one thing we will not tolerate. Home is where the kind is, and you are one of your own kind. If you're alone tonight, you deserve to be treated as if you have a guest at home. You maybe know that better than I, but the Mindus told me to sing that high. Hi. I love you and I'm in love with you. This is the mystery fontedness. Good golly, that's what this place is? Oh, that's right. Oh God, that's right. And there's so much to do. What's next? I was going to share a piloting through an aperture that I use that is a state of flow through which I ope. Radio Science Brain is a song poem I'm unraveling or scrolling or writing. But it's made often, not always with recording, by other means than my memory and such, but often recorded and often streamed. And it's also, at its pulled out scale, seen from above, so to speak, it's a large piece of which I hope to build an archive that is scannable as a shape. as one thing that can be layered over itself. Because while parts of it may be different, most of it is at 96 beats a minute. And it is about the belief that you are the renovation of love's imagination. That's what this place is. That's what this place is. It's assembling executive function. And you know what they say. It's actually a useful phrase that we don't use to mean, we use it in one way, but it's a useful phrase. All right. Radiant, sentient, scient. Brain. Good gravy. Like a dub for the mind, a dub for the mindness. I think I'm just realizing it. I'm learning to pay attention more to the time that I need to take. And I am neurodivergent, and thank goodness. Because otherwise I would have some explaining to do. Not in a bad way. What is that which makes this what it is? Not just the obvious center of your captivation right now. I'm saying this democracy, where this is just one small, although I'm saying this not of me, but of what I think is here, a significant, legitimate nexus of something to do with history. And a point architecturally, structurally, and that, of course, has some large amount to do with how it's placed in the neighborhood, everything. And the tranquility and calm and the era of the building, as well as these magnificent chambers and portals that make this like an organ with ventricles and an arrangement of different things that can be done like stops on an instrument. Like closing small windows and how these things intersect, and that there are apertures, not only doorways, but windows with different availabilities to close these apertures, like little, oh here, excuse me, pardon, here's your prescription, like little ticket windows. They're postage stamps. And so what's being sent into this space or out, or for experiences created here that are experienced by more than one person physically here, and or streamed or recorded, built here, that there is something unique and odd and majestic about this peculiar happenstance. Like, this happened and it's here, and it says, I'm just showing a brief glimpse here, but without without getting, whoa, easy now, without getting too complex. I don't want to disturb this. I think there's something unique here, and I think it's helpful from time to time, helpful to just open up in different ways, and to be in some place of evolution about what this is, and that means what the interaction is, and what I'm sharing of this work in a way that is conscious and accessible and legible, or has a point of like clear availability, or avail to intersect with it in some positive way, or how the vision of this place, now that we're beginning to finalize edits for sharing some artist visits and continuing those, how this evolves, that the vision is essentially here now as a beginning substrate of work along the themes that I've been building on, including being mindful of the threat of fascism, that we can together find better options than embarking upon, that we can find a way to be tolerant and careful and caring of one another as human family here. And I think that the assault on kindness and the assault on humanity, the assault on decency, the assault on wokeness, which attempts to demonize by throwing different kinds of bigotries about marginalized groups, throwing that venom and hatred about people of certain kinds at the model of loving your neighbor as you love yourself. That admonishment from at least one figure that comes to mind, and many, in fact, that is, for whatever the thought, matters, regardless of where it comes from, but I'll take the blame for saying it. I think wokeness is loving your neighbor as you love yourself. I think that those things are the same bandwidth. That requires awareness. It requires being awake enough to, in probably more than one way, awake in ways that have integrity and care to some degree about being available to the world and engaged in the world such that you know how to find like habituation within the ecosystem of humanity, and that it seems like people do better if they're able to have kindness and care in their lives in ways that feel good to them, hopefully. Or that I think the idea of standing up for, like with boundaries of steel, league, standing up for what is right, truth, justice, and the American way. That we only attain equality if we stand for it, and if, in part, people who the world says are not going to stand for this don't have to, and do because it's literally exactly the right thing to do. It's always been the right thing to do to take apart white supremacy. It's always been the right thing to do. It's always been the right thing to do to prevent murder and to stop it. It's always been the right thing to do. That's always been the right thing to do, to show love, even if that means finding a way to kindly separate yourself from someone else. But the difference between niceness, propriety, and kindness. Kindness doesn't necessarily feel good, but it treats people as if they are also one of your own kind. And doesn't judge them and say, because you're on the other side of a border, you're less human, or I don't have to worry about you, or the truly Nazified version of Christ that MAGA is proposing, and the evangelical, like the prosperity gospel stuff, is dangerous and feels very antichrist. Like these are the tables that Christ would flip first where they come once again. And how in the world, if there is a legitimate separation between church and state, but if there were Americans here who wanted to meet Christ were they to come, Christ is not getting into America. The odds are that Christ wouldn't be born here. How is Christ getting into America? Christ is dying in a river. On the outskirts of Texas. Lacerated. Christ didn't make it because the family never received word that, in fact, the family member they were told, we'll never know if we'll ever find them. We don't know where they were sent. Oh, actually, they ended up being like, a couple of counties over, and they're like in a facility, and oh gosh, but they weren't being taken care of and we had to get rid of them. We're dealing with a total breakdown of expectations and stories that verge into abject horror when we can actually face the atrocities that have come before, when we're strong enough, or at least the people who are going to be leaders should be strong enough to stand for what is right. Those are the people we let into office, not a person who says it's smart to lie while saying, well, you should remove the loopholes if you don't want me to use them. Maybe it seems dirty, but that's the way it is, and you should get rid of them if you don't like them. And that's the guy who says, I have absolute authority. And you're going to give me absolute immunity. I have absolute authority. I can do whatever I want. I can kill someone and go too far, he said. I can cross the line. I can do bad things. I can kill someone, he said, and no one can do anything about it, he said. That is absolutely insane. How does that person who says, I'm doing bad things because anybody would, because those are the rules, you should change the rules. I mean, which is to say, I wouldn't do bad things if you would just change the rules, but would you just give me power to do whatever I want and crush anyone? Does this sound like anything but a dark triad predator? He is good at lying. He's really good at it. It doesn't feel like he's lying. That's what makes it good. When he's talking total nonsense. When he's just pulling a yo-yo along the tunnel of attention. And people are saying, and it's the biggest thing. Really, you don't know that it's the biggest thing, and people are, and he's just pulling the yo-yo, and there's really no clue. There actually ends up being just, the clue that's around his finger of that yarn, but it's just wound around a yo-yo. And it's a really long string, but there are no clues along the string. There are no balls of yarn along the yarn. It's just a long, false yarn. He's really good at lying. He's really good at it. When you are encountering the falsehood, Scoop Troop, have on you, if you might, whether mentally in your back pocket or in the back trunk or just in a little light, have your Darvo selection of, there we are, DARVO, right, deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. I think that's his spectrum. Their spectrum, the falsehood. What is the falsehood? That's a good question. Thank you, mindedness. The falsehood is a lie. The falsehood is a dangerous and foundational lie. The falsehood is the crucial lie. The falsehood is a malicious or destructive or tragic lie. The falsehood is a malicious lie that might end up snapping back and backfiring on the falsehood who said it. And by way of the falsehood, by way of that, the falsehood is one who, in a soft sense, dons the falsehood for a moment in a way that is to say, has an element of a wee bit of espionage, but essentially the falsehood is one who does don a falsehood and is an assumed identity, a false or permuted, a hokum. And some people live a lifetime as that, or for a time. And over the centuries, in fact, as most or many of us know, there have been, I think, 11 in the last couple of centuries, but over millennia, a number of people who have, credibly to human culture at least, resonated with and been stamped essentially in the mindness of humankind, or had actually claimed and had strange, unique linkages, essentially, and just resonances that people draw together and, tease apart and say like, oh, well, these machinations are so like that of. But those few, and I don't really know those stories very well. I guess I feel like I only have a vague notion of them to some extent. I'm learning. But how much we're conversant with what do we really understand until now, when in a matter of a few years it finally sunk in, and 8 years ago we all were enveloped under the hood of a collective abusive relationship and an era of abject betrayal trauma together and alone, all at the same time. All of us in an abusive relationship with someone who can contact us by phone and send us emails, and who told us that he would keep us in suspense and probably should have been dropped through a trapdoor into a tube where you get a rose and say, thank you for trying to be president, but no thank you. You're going to keep us in suspense? Nope. That was your final answer? That was your final chance, sir. But for some reason, we just kind of like plooped ourselves just happily under that falsehood that he was at all a safe person to let, for the Secret Service to like let into the same room with the president, let alone to run for the office. We've been together under this falsehood of hokum. And what is that? Like the strands of permuting hokum that like weave across and are just everywhere, like through all of the air around us and through us and across our faces as a fiber of confusion and fear and forgotten space of memory, like not remembering a shrinkage of us. We've experienced brain damage, all of us. Betrayal trauma for 8 years. And now looking at that same abuser coming back and pounding on the door and saying, hey, that restraining order you're getting is marriage interference. I love you. I'm coming in. What? The Falcon Crest. No. is the answer. The answer is no. You don't get to come back. You don't get to come back. You were an attack. It's not a was he, wasn't he. They did. You said you'll keep us in suspense, and then you did it. Or you fucking tried. You don't get to say that you did it and didn't do it. And that you did nothing wrong and come back. We are reversing your application for president. We are rejecting it. That would be the response. That is the response of an America that has self-respect and any amount of wisdom whatsoever. He said he was going to make the greatest soup and made a joke about, my shit's so good, my shit's so good, oh man, you can't wait to taste my shit. And we're like, why do you keep saying that? Do we need to worry you're going to get earthy with the soup? What are you talking about, man? Like, you're asking for a job as a chef. What are you talking about? Oh, I'll keep you in suspense. What? You're going to put what in the soup? Oh, no, hey, oh, look, man. How dare you impugn I'm a chef. I take this seriously. The thought. Jeez, come on. So he's hired. And he calls together this huge party. And it's going to be like the best soup, but he really needs to get everybody's input. And everybody needs to have a sip. And, you know, long story short, I don't think it was that the ingredients were short and he just grabbed what was handy. I think that they found, he left. There was poop in the soup, like that everyone had. He pretty clearly put his own feces into the soup. And that's why he was fired. And he tried to stay anyway and keep serving it to people. And finally, after hours of not admitting what had happened and trying to get people to keep eating, he's like, okay, look, hey, what's happened today has been a terrible thing. Everybody go home. The criminals will be found. Whoever put my shit into the soup and made me say things that I wouldn't have said if I would have known that someone had put my poop into my soup, I cannot believe what Nikki Haley told Michelle Bachmann about Tammy Faye Baker. What the Falcon Crest? Are we anywhere near? Who's paying attention that sees that when he announced he was running for president and the news networks didn't call that an act of war, that was an evident moment that we had broken through to a new bubble of a terrorized press, a deepening and a similar run to corruption in the same way that has happened within MAGA. And it's not that it doesn't happen with Democrats or other people too, but some of the worst people in society, such as Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ron DeSantis, have broken into the building. And on obvious, malicious, ill-intended falsehoods, they harm people. And it is indelibly clear that we need to have the Darvo card handy to say, what am I hearing here? Why is she screaming? Again, what is wrong with you, person? Why are you attacking someone? Why are you degrading our expectation, Marjorie, of what kindness human beings deserve? Like, we can have a conversation about the stuff you're yelling about. Like, if you actually want to have a conversation about this stuff, don't yell about evidence. Present it in an appropriate way. There's a space for redress of these things. And that's the crux, I think, in some way, of the danger of her. It is lynch mob brain syndrome. It is the idea that reproach is part of censorship, is some kind of part of an extremism or something. That a little bit of reproach, like you might not like being scolded, but it's part of when people speak to one another sometimes. Sometimes you will be scolded, and if you're a racist, Marjorie, you will be called a racist. Don't get used to it. Get past it by curing your cancer, Marjorie, of caustic Ku Klux Klan hate and intolerance. Cure yourself of your cancer. Go to therapy. Deal with the issues that people present to you as harbingers of your toxic hatred, or show that you are part of human family. The way that you terroristically attack Black Lives Matter, the way that you frame everything as a plot against white people, and yet what you seem to want to protect is just white supremacy. It's just the dumbest sitcom that's been switched to tragedy and just kind of running that way. It's not sustainable, kiddo. We need the distractions of, the distractions of Marjorie Taylor Greene to some extent is the same as a group of ridiculous Nazis walking in a parade with masks in America trying to normalize toxic fascist hatred. It's the same, to some extent, it's obviously terrorism, it's hate crime fomenting, it's spreading toxic cancer. It's also just a distraction and a breaking down of society's ability to do anything. That is part of its intent. The need to reconstitute executive function so carefully and meticulously and sort of constantly. It's being alive, but it's also in a time of permuting hokum and fascism. It's constant. It certainly can be. It's atrocious. And if we don't face it head on with kindness and nonviolence now, it's very clear. The thing about the language of Marjorie Taylor Greene's lynch mob brain syndrome is that those are fighting words. Madge, your language are fighting words. You are using fighting words. You are standing in the public square screaming, fighting words. And that is typically how someone starts a riot. So the ridiculousness, I mean, the obvious, like, playground tactics in terms of the maturity, but for evil and violence. I think that's what we're facing, because we do need a balance, and there is a balance in society. There is a spectrum of ideas, and conservatism is not represented by MAGA at all, and that it's poisoned by Nazism and Ku Klux Klan patriarchal terror, totally disqualifies it. I mean, what part of cancer are you saying is good for humanity? I don't see a good part of it. I see nothing good there. Nothing that's not part of anything else. Because that's where people are. People are the good thing. I don't see one scrap of hatred that helps. Not to mention, it's just fucking incorrect. For real, to look at if one group of people decides, even though they don't have to. And that's the important part. And as we go on, future day by future day, that we didn't have to, as white people, make up whiteness and say, this is that, and oh, look, we're here on this island of this, and oh, look, oh, wow, we're on a mountain, I guess. And put it into law and make it toxic cancer of withholding and capture pooling and creating scarcity traps. Allowing the creation of scarcity traps within what is supposed to be peacetime society. We are distracted from dealing with by the malice of resurgent Ku Klux Klan buffoonery. MAGA is just the latest incarnation of angry Confederates. And the thing is, there's an app for that. There are a few apps for angry Confederates. There is therapy, and there is parsing your relationship with heritage and with political history that is linked to terrorism. Your cancer can't come to the table of human family. We need help to deal with stuff sometimes. Therapy's good. Everybody should go to therapy. It's way better than the dentist. And there's eventually kind of nothing there to be scared of except yourself. And if you're afraid to go into a room with someone who's potentially there to help, or that you can say, you know what, I don't like this, I'll find somebody else to work with. Have a nice day. That's all good. But you're not able to open up to that possibility, or you're not able to give yourself space and time, place and time in a room, in a quiet place, like as if you are worth listening to, or worth creating silence and space that's just you, like doing nothing, that's shitty or bad or not worthy, or we're part of gift. And Scoop Troop, good to have Darvo handy, but I'm going to deposit that for the moment. I'm saying I love you and I'm in love with you, that we are together in fostering a world built with love, and we can do this. And how I know that is that more than anything, we seem to gravitate to some things like truth, justice, and the American way. And I know that we all know that Superman fought the Nazis. And I think we also know that Superman wouldn't hurt the Nazis if he could just say, look, fellas, ladies, siblings, everybody, kit and caboodle, what's up, what's up, what's up? I'm going to let you know, humanity is interested in you no longer bringing your cancer to the table. So how can we help you process the new reality on Earth where intolerance is not tolerated? You know, the reality we've been trying to bring into being since we crawled out of the mud. Not utopia, just we make a ground floor that's not about torture and punishment of a large segment of humanity. That we release our addiction to punishment. That we capitalize upon human want. But then who will we harm? What about all the prison work? What about all those people paid nothing? What about all that incredible pain we produce? Somebody's supposed to be in pain. Yeah? Really? Mm-mm. Methinks not. I think that's absurd. I think that's human self-sacrifice. To not see that we are dealing with generational trauma based around a system of needless punishment, of torture at birth for many or most men without consent, that ruptures psyches and bodies for a lifetime, as one point of data, and therefore delivers a pretty messed up poison pill into how boys understand consent, or understand whether or not they are able to understand consent, like whether they've ever felt a baseline of actual safety, because they are constantly trying to self-regulate. Like for myself, as a person with neurodiversity, who was understood by one parent, not through that lens, but just understood. I mean, a teacher who understands gifted kids and We just got each other. I expect she's on the spectrum too. But the point being, the gift and dialing in and calm, to be mindful, to be present, and to be self. And that amidst chaos that is fomented in part to break down that executive function. We know that in poverty, people's imagination decreases, that the more we're like coming into like, oh God, am I safe? Like, and the more worry that there is, that does harm. It does harm to the ability to think and remember that we have imagination, and remember, oh, that friend, we're usually talking more often. What? Oh, I should check in with, like, we lose track of stuff because we are traumatized, because we're like becoming hypervigilant. And the thing about some aspects of society for sure with social media, with some aspects of where things are going, and with people who utilize it for malice, the bandwidth of Marjorie Taylor Greene is to provoke a panic attack. It's all about creating a lynch mob. It's all about fostering anger that there's no time to double check the facts on. Because those people are, I knew it. Oh yeah, let's go get them. It's like, it's a lynch mob. She's just, we can see Madge. I mean, we're soaking in it. We're soaking in the hokum of her constant, a white woman is singing her holy suspicions. I'm calling it right now. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jordan Peterson are going to connect and work together. I think that they are going to foster an interesting partnership together. Something strange is going to happen. I just think that might be true. But that's just rather a speculation. Puzzle pieces fit together in strange ways sometimes. This mystery font is in part a focusing instrument for perception of what is happening. And that's part of the aspect of having separation between spaces that's novel and lets us, through a postage stamp, see a small part of another reality. Maybe a reality where water is oil and oil is water, and so our realities don't quite gel together, but they can gel up close to be perceptible from wherever, over there, ever. So that, do you know you are more than a brain? You are the mind maintain, curiosity grade, waking wax out, of wane to wade, not fade, but aid this parade. That's what this place is? That's what this place is? That's what this place is. That's what this place is. I knew it. I knew it all along. But this constant recovering of executive function it's orienting. All right. It's apparently time for a switcheroo. You know, neighbor, when I wonder, it's wonderful. How about you? Do you find when you really wonder, like, how deep into this would it be where you say, I really wondered? If you're deeply speculating upon something, is that really wondering? Or does it need, I'm not asking whether or not there are rules. I'm just saying, does it need a sense of awe to it? Or of like, look at this palace I'm wandering through. So further to feather that fluff or floss through to the teeth of the moth, let's light or a light from Hoth. All right. That, are we there? Not sure if it's, oh, we may be there. Testing. Let's find this. Well, we are at the font of mystery, 42, Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is. How is all with you? We're doing fine. How are you? Is it there? Aha, yes. Aha, yes. The mindness, I confess. Oh. You are the brain awake. You are the renovation of imagining its ache. You are the renovation of I'm imagining its ache. Pretend that kindness came to one forsake. Imagination into aid. The science braid parading in imaginous waving mind waves not in vain. Radio science brain imagination aid contagious by this bathing in imagining waving this flare I play on a vector visible somewhere anyway. Nature, your creature would create imagination aim, making radio science brain, imagination may be game. Imagination may be game to play. Imagination may be game to play. Remain the nature your creator would create and ape. Imagination ape. Imagination ape. Imagination ape. Imagination ape. Imagination ape. Imagination ape. Radio science brain came to play. Pretend that love is saying be nature. Your creator aches to unveil my main be game. Imagination ache. The mind has made this hate into aid. The mind has made this aim into aid. This is the kindness came to page. Imagination age. This is the kind mention. This is the kind prehension. Imagine your attention, clarion sharpened by way. Somehow there is way, executive function restores today. Somehow energy and the spoons to be breathing freely. Come to you like you're coming through. Radio science, brain, imagination aim. Imagination aim, imagination aim. The mind has made me make radio science brain. The mind has made me make this aim. Radio science brain, imagination aim. You are the kindness we remake or remind or update. Imagination sate. Imagination state. Substrate, be made, be named, be sane. Radio science brain. Particle matter wave. This is the kindly capable. The kindless capable. This is the kindness made. This mild mindness findings filled contain embraced will relay the skill relay the name came to play Radio science brain, pretend love made space for your way. Imagination aim. Particle, matter, wave. What? Oh, that's what this place is. Ah, shucks. Oh gosh. It's happening. Oh, I remember this. I think I remember this. This happened before. This happened before, didn't it? I'm awake though. Am I saving up for a recharge? Is something coming in? I think the mindness is dialing me in or something. Something's happening. There's a bulletin. There's a bulletin. I'm not sure what else to say. So, we're dealing with being boxed into a small space when we really have some room. And a sense like that happens when there's sort of messing around with time and urgency and fear, so that we think, oh, we can't bring up that thing from before. Oh, well, okay, but what do we get to, oh, ding, and we're dealing with a con artist. And so dealing with the falsehood, we're constantly sort of in a sense of waking up in the beginning of a sitcom episode that's about to end sometime soon. And we have to just figure out what's happening. And the normalized spectrum of media coverage tends to show a very permuted and kind of just camera on person talking, where because of the degradation of expectations created by people like Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene, like an Alex Jones bandwidth of communication where everything is attack meant to degrade and humiliate and like castigate and ruin people's minds and lives and hearts. It's meant to tear people apart. So, like, like discovering on your wedding night that your new spouse is a toxic abuser and you're in hell for 10 years or something. Like, dealing with betrayal trauma, dealing with being in a space that feels like it's compressed and we have only this much time, and hey, no, I'm the only one who's going to give you this deal, and hey, you're not going to like it even better if somebody else comes along. Hey, come on, let's go here. A sense of rushing. A sense of like, hey, you're lucky to have me on this. Come on, let's move. Like, the sense is in multiple ways made to vaunt Trump as a purveyor of, like, an arbiter, as a purveyor of knowledge of what's what, and of power, and as someone to know and those kinds of things. His constant cheerleading of self. Again, he's not just a very consistent liar, like he lies all the time, just about, but he's very good at it. There are multiple strategies, including letting himself, like letting things crumple. Even that happens. He occasionally just gets caught, but he doesn't care. So cannot be caught in that sense. Like, there's not a place where he necessarily will say, oh, you're right, well, that was bad, I shouldn't have done that. He doesn't necessarily have the gene. Those words could come out of his mouth, but he does not have the capacity, if it was ever there, if it hasn't been burned or torn or ground out of him. There's not a place where except for maybe enjoyment of it, that he enjoys saying something horrible that would shatter someone's day or career or life. And just as a side note, in the middle of some kind of conference or convention or something, a rally, he will say the most reprehensible, toxic thing in the world, because, like, grabbing someone's hand and yanking it into them or into him, so they're off balance and they look, and they get flustered. No, he's in control. Hey, boy. The cheat, the projection threat, I'll keep you in suspense, or I could shoot someone in the street and not lose anybody, or if we stop testing, we'll have very few cases, if any. How many different ways do you need to tell people, I'll do whatever I want to you? But that frame of that mind, constantly working to keep everything in a tiny little box of, we're just talking about this here, and it's in this way, and it's to always be musical chairsing to something else. That was in the case of my authority as president. Well, this was because of my role in this, and actually that in that way I was actually opening myself, and over here, and I was this, and this thing was, and that there was this thing, and I was actually this. That was, see, there is those that that's that there's those things that this is, so this is that thing. It's a weird little fucking dance like that, kind of all the time that he's going through. Of like phasing in and out of like Tefloning off of things, and Gordon Gekkoing his frame to like, because he doesn't have functional empathy other than to target people. We don't get, it's like shining a light and we don't see the cat's eyes shining back and we're like, I don't see the cat. Like, no, he's not like a normal cat like that. He says something reprehensible in the crowd, like, and he might, you know, to the point where people might, someone on the stage saying that thing who gets that reaction might be like, oh God, I super fucked up. That was way too far. That will never happen. He will never say a thing that is too much and people say, oh, whoa, and he might get a reaction that makes him back off. But he will not be and feel castigated. He will, because there's a monstrous thing happening there in him. And he utilizes it. We're in incredible danger. We're in incredible danger because of his malice and because of the malice of those supporting him. And we have a way to be safe, to defeat them, to send them to healthcare, but the Nazis of the Heritage Foundation and the Project 2025 bandwidth are a danger to the survival of humanity. And we can pull ourselves out of this traumatic brain injury. We can heal. We can accustom ourselves to capabilities and foster capabilities. It helps to reckon with where we're at. And we are dealing with betrayal trauma. Mass, individual, betrayal trauma. Alone, together.
Six the feet of separation. Six the fear of separation. Six the fear of separation. Six the feet of separation. Six the feet of separation. Six feet of separation. Six feet Prepared people can plan quick. It didn't cause the panic. It meant to draw iceberg Titanic. It drew the iceberg to Titanic. Away, 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 away. Lost in World War II. Embarrassed radar their crew. What we knew was probably due. Had no great American wall or boundary left. Just let it through. He did because of panic. The Nazis lost. He did to cause of panic. 'Cause radar read them coming through. False play, we know, don't want. The false play, we know, don't want. The false play, we know, don't want. Accomplice to be so apparent. He didn't mean to cause a panic. He meant to draw iceberg to
Titanic.
Dixie,
Dixie,
even libraries easy. He didn't mean to draw optics that he warned iceberg of Titanic, but he warned iceberg and Titan stick. You got a tree and leave a stone. I don't recognize guardian. To got a seed and leave a stone. I don't perceive a guardian. To got a tree and leave a stone. I don't perceive a guardian. To got a tree and leave a stone. It's not what I call guardian. To embody actual Trump. You're a real card, your father's son. You're a real card, your father's suit. You're a real card, your father's loot. It's not the thing you swear upon. It's what your heart was. It's what your heart was. It's what your heart will not abandon. It's what your heart won't abandon.
It's what your heart won't abandon. It's how your word becomes action. It's that your word's an honest one. How long must you menace us?
You do doubt the Google You're a real card. You're a real card. You're a real card. Real card. Real card. Didn't want to cause a panic. He didn't want to cause the panic. Plans stick when planning happens. We're not thick. Six, the fear of separation. Six, the fear of separation. Six, the fear of separation. Six, the feet of separation. Six, the feet of separation. Six, the feet of separation. The feet of separation. Sick. The feet of separation. The feet of separation. Sick alliance with predation. Six, the feet of separation. Six, the feet of separation. Six, the feet of separation. Six, the feet of devastation. Limbs and lips, executive thinking. Executive deception would be easier to perceive in place with reason. Deceptive.
Executive function leaves without reason. Executive function leaves without reason. Executive function. Your brain function. Calm. Escalate. Calm. 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 We are experiencing massive distortions in the field of reality. And we can restore our ability to redefine and recover executive function so we're aware of when we are being rushed out of the moment or rushed to forget. That we can remember what happened yesterday. We can remember, although it might be painful, we can take remembering what it was like to be victimized at the beginning of COVID. We can remember what it was like to be told that our neighbors are rapists. We can remember what it was like to be broken of the expectation that human decency was an expectation we could continue to have. By the abuse of the falsehood and those who follow them. Who is the falsehood? That is an excellent question. Will we ever know? Will we ever truly know who is the falsehood? Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of mendacity? The falsehood knows. The falsehood knows. The falsehood may tell you it's the one and only. The falsehood may say the press is your enemy. To cry fake news yet preempt all remedy? That displays false identity. We are the reality distortion fielding. America, we cannot depend on the falsehood. We are the reality distortion fielding.